Good morning, everyone. This is another Saturday morning Dhamma talk, Dhamma reflections from Clear Mountain Monastery. So today we will continue talking about Anguttara Nikaya, book of Sevens, Sutta number 68. The name of the discourse is the Atthaññū Sutta, where the Buddha enumerates 7 different types of intelligence or 7 different ways of knowing, which are especially helpful in the cultivation of the Dhamma, cultivation of the Buddhist path, really of a path of happiness of any kind. So today we will be going into the second of these intelligences, and as usual, the format for these mornings will be I'll offer about half an hour of reflections on the content of this discourse, and then we'll open it up to question and answers, and anyone can write down any thoughts or reflections or questions that you might have in the YouTube chat box. So to begin, as usual, we will begin with the traditional homage to the Triple Gem. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, so perhaps some people have heard of Howard Gardner and his theories of multiple intelligence. So according to his theory, which have been around since the late 80s, he started off with a book which enumerated 7 types of intelligence, 7 different domains of cognitive skill and capacity. And then since then, he's added a few more. So his list includes things like musical or rhythmic intelligence, visual spatial intelligence, linguistic or verbal intelligence, logical mathematical intelligence, which is oftentimes what is measured by IQ, bodily or kinesthetic intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, also known as social intelligence, or emotional intelligence. Then there's intrapersonal intelligence, which is the knowledge of oneself, naturalistic intelligence, and maybe even a spiritual or existential intelligence. So that's kind of a Western framework, which some people might be familiar with. But this discourse, Anguttara Nikaya 7.68, which you can find a link to in the YouTube show notes, is a list of 7 different types of, 7 different domains of appreciation on a mental level, which the Buddha listed a number of times. This particular discourse, the Buddha gives certain definitions of each of these 7 qualities, and in other discourses he just lists them right out and doesn't give any kind of explanation. So the 7 types of intelligence which the Buddha goes into are Atthaññū, which we spoke about last week, and that is, it's owing to the fact that there are so many different definitions of the word Dhamma, it's hard to translate this way of knowing into English concisely or just with one term. So we can just borrow the Pali. So this is a Dhammic intelligence, or you could conceive of it in these Western terms of Howard Gardner as existential intelligence. That's one aspect of Atthaññū, knowing the Dhamma, being one who knows the Dhamma. The second type of intelligence, which we'll be going into examining, trying to explore in this Dhamma talk, is called Atthaññū. Atthaññū. Attha. So knowledge of the Attha. And in this talk, we'll be going into 4 different meanings, roughly, of Atthaññū, which we can perhaps summarize with a catch-all English term for intuitive intelligence. And we'll see if we can flush out and give some weight to what the connotations of this term I'm using, intuitive intelligence, what that might mean. Atthaññū, knowing the Attha. The third type of intelligence the Buddha lists in this discourse is Atthaññū, A-T-T-A, which is intrapersonal intelligence. So this is the knowledge of self, Attha. The fourth type of intelligence is Matthaññū, so knowing the measure or quantitative intelligence. The fifth type of intelligence, the fifth type of Aññā, of knowledge, is Kalaññū, or temporal intelligence, knowing the right time, knowing when it's the right time to do what. The sixth type of intelligence is Parisaññū, which is social intelligence, or having a grasp of different social arrangements, different groupings, so how you approach different groups of people. And then finally in this list there is Pugala Paro Paranyu, or interpersonal intelligence, or knowing distinctions among people, that this person is shy, this other person is outgoing, this person is Buddhist, this person is Christian, this person has such and such interests, etc. And then, knowing how to relate to people differently based on that information. So those are the 7 types of intelligence. Last week we went over Dhammaññū, the Dhammic intelligence. This week we'll go over the intuitive intelligence, and then the remaining 5 intelligences, the remaining 5 ways of knowing, we'll go over in subsequent weeks. So that's the plan. But Kalaññū, knowing a temporal intelligence, everything is uncertain. Who knows what will happen with the world, or with you, or with me? The world is an uncertain thing, so we can make plans, but there's a joke that what's the best way to make God laugh? This is a Christian joke or a non-Buddhist joke. What's the best way to make God laugh is make plans. But to the extent we can make plans, this is our course, what we propose to go over in the next upcoming weeks. So jumping right into Atthaññū, what does it mean to know the Attha? What is this Attha-ic intelligence? Before examining the 4 different specific meanings of Attha, which you find throughout the canon, I'll just read how Atthaññū, knowledge of the Attha, is defined in this discourse. So, and how is one who knows the Attha? It's when a samana, or a practitioner, knows the Attha of this or that statement. This is the Attha of that statement, or this is the Attha of this statement. If a samana, a practitioner, did not know the Attha of this or that statement, they would not be called one who knows the Attha, an Atthaññū. But because they know the Attha of this or that statement, they are called one who knows the Attha. Such is one who knows the teachings, the Dhammaññū, and one who knows the Attha. So hopefully people are now on the edge of their seats. If you are right now in a lethargic mental state, it's good to be on the edge of your seat. Yeah, if the mind is dull or drowsy, or your mindfulness is not very sharp, the Buddha said in other places that this is the time to put forth energy. Now is the time to investigate Dhamma. So this is the time, in other words, to be on the edge of your seat, to be roused, to learn what you haven't yet learned, or to increase your clarity and keenness of the knowledge you already have. If you are already calm, then that's the time to, if you're already agitated, if your mind is all over the place, that is not the time to be on the edge of your seat. So I recommend for people who are already agitated and maybe already mentally proliferating and creating stories and already over on the edge of your seat, then I suggest you all sit back and relax and just either focus on your breath or try to take in this teaching in a way which calms the mind, in a way which leads to tranquility. But for those who want to be roused, then we can look at 4 different meanings of Attha, which occur throughout the Pali Canon. So the first meaning is literally the meaning or significance. Yeah. The second meaning of Attha is goodness or benefit. The third meaning of Attha is the results as opposed to the causes. So Attha can mean the results. And the fourth meaning of Attha is the goal or the purpose. Yeah. So these are 4 meanings of Attha. So let's look into each one of them individually and see how they might relate to this intuitive intelligence, how they might relate to what's spoken of in this discourse as knowing the Attha of this or that statement. So the first definition of Attha is the meaning or significance. So you find this use of the word Attha in the canon, specifically when something is being defined. So when you want to, or when the Buddha would give relate the connotation or the denotation, basically a Buddhist dictionary definition of a certain term, he would say, this is the Attha, this is the meaning of this term. This is the spirit of this term as opposed to the letter. In many discourses, you'll see a distinction made between the Dhamma and the Attha. And what this refers to in this context is what we often say in English is the letter and the spirit. Yeah, so the letter in that particular framework of the Dhamma and the Attha, that pair, the Dhamma is the letter of the teaching, the letter of the law. And the Attha is the spirit or the gist. So you're able to recognize the essential, the pith of a particular teaching. So last week we talked about Atthaññū, having this Dhammic intelligence, this existential intelligence, which is defined as having a knowledge of the teachings and having a framework for organizing those teachings in your mind. You may, in that sense, have different discourses memorized, whether explicitly, whether in Pali or in English or whatever other language you might memorize teachings in. But it's not enough just to have memorized a teaching or just to have a knowledge of the lettering and the phrasing of teachings, but you also want to know what is the significance of this teaching. So another way of framing this type of intelligence, this aspect of Attha, is interpretive intelligence or translative intelligence. You're able to not only know what the teachings are, you're able not only just to be able to recite the teachings, to chant the teachings, but you can say, oh, this is the meaning of this or that term. This is the meaning. This is what the Buddha was getting at. And so over and above just memorizing the teachings, we want to have whole mental frameworks for connecting the teachings. So this is something which is work which we have to do over and beyond simply reciting the teachings. It's a wonderful thing to memorize chanting, but to really internalize the teachings, you need to take the extra effort and the extra time. For most of us, it's not a immediate grasp of the meaning of a teaching. You need to take extra time to figure out how the words which are in the discourse, the words which you read on Access to Insight or Sutta Central, or you read in the Wisdom Publications editions of the four Nikayas, the Majjhima, Digha, Samyutta, Anguttara Nikaya. How do you take those words and translate them in a way which is meaningful for you? Yet how do you understand the teachings in a way which goes to your heart? And this takes time and takes intention and an overarching appreciation of a meta, M-E-T-A, picture of the Dhamma. So you begin to see the connections. Yeah, with the Dhammic intelligence that we talked about last week, you've created the different nodes in your mind map. Yeah, you've got the 7 factors of awakening, you've got the Eightfold Path, you've got the 4 Noble Truths, you've got the 4 right efforts, you've got the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the threefold training, etc. But with this Atthaññū, knowing the meaning and the significance, the interpretive intelligence, the translative intelligence, that's when you start to make the connections between these different nodes. So you see that, oh, the 4 right strivings, the 4 padana, actually fit into the Eightfold Path factor of right effort. Okay, and what that means for me is, how do I put forth effort to abandon the unwholesome and to cultivate the wholesome? You make these connections inside your mind. So it's almost like you can expand on the different nodes of your cognitive framework, and you have an overall sense. It's like how the brain, you've got these different axons, but you've also got the dendrites. You've got the body of the neurons, but you've also got the tail, which goes out and makes connections all over the place. And it's, what do they say? The number of connections which just one human brain can create through all the different combinations of mental connections is more than the number of atoms in the known universe. And you think, how is that possible? I mean, the human brain is only so large. It's possible because of the exponential nature of different ways of connecting. So it's similar with this interpretive intelligence, your translative intelligence. You translate the Dhamma, you translate the Buddha's teachings into a framework which you can understand. So the second meaning of Attha is goodness or benefit. So in terms of intelligences, we're calling Atthaññū on a broad framework, the intuitive intelligence, but this specific aspect, knowing what's good or knowing what's beneficial, we can call beatitudinal intelligence. If you want a fancy word, that's a fancy word. Beatitudinal. Beatitude, that which is a blessing in Latin. So the type of intelligence which knows what's beneficial. And this one way of thinking about this is, what is the attha? What is the benefit for yourself? What's the benefit for other people? And what's the benefit for both? So when you have this type of intelligence, you have a deeper appreciation for what is truly beautiful. Yeah, on the level of the mind, what is truly beautiful? What is truly beneficial? What is kusala? What is akusala? What is wholesome? What's unwholesome? What's skillful? What's unskillful? Beatitudinal intelligence. And you know what's beneficial for yourself. And from that, being able to appreciate that, then you can infer that if refraining from greed, anger, and delusion is good for me, then it's good for others as well. You know that when I refrain from lying about different things, whether it's large lies or white lies, whatever the level, that's good for me, and it's good for other people. It's good for both. So this is another way of understanding attha, is the benefit. You know what's good, and you know what's bad in a certain sense. And you can have an appreciation of this by reading the discourses, but also just when you know for yourself, as it says in the Kalama Sutta, that this thing, when I do it, whether it's an act of body, speech, and mind, when I do it, it will lead to my own benefit, to the benefit of others, and to the benefit of both. Then you can say, oh, this is good. Yeah, this is beautiful. When I see other people not being gossipy, not talking about others behind their back, that's beautiful. And when I see people go about and just kind of delight in discord, in communal discord, and the jealousy involved with that, it's ugly. And you see these things, and that's one way of growing and increasing your beatitude. Fruit of action. So this is in contrast to heta. Attha, you know the fruit. So one knows the fruit and result of this or that statement. Yeah, or one knows the fruit and result of this or that action. So this is something which you can understand and learn. You can learn in this, we can call it predictive intelligence or forecasting intelligence. Again, for people who like fancy words, predictive intelligence it's something to conceive of, and it's something to incline oneself towards understanding. And how do you know the future? There is a belief in some Buddhist schools that the Buddha and people who have, there's this belief in omniscience. The Buddha could know the future. I think this is true in a sense, in that the Buddha knew the past. Yeah. So the Buddha could make forecasts and predict the future because he fully understood patterns in the past. And we can do the same thing. So we can predict the future based on our understanding of history. And specifically, what's most important for us in this context is not, being able to predict which, stock is going to go up, which company is going to have the greatest growth in the stock market, but what are going to be the effects of this or that ethical action? And we can predict that from seeing patterns in the past, both within our own life, within our own selves, and in seeing how it's played out for other people. So general patterns are, people who kill. It's the law of the land that, in many states, people who kill will, be subject to the death penalty. And the Buddha is not saying that, that is a good thing, but there are these Dhammic principles of the universe that, when you steal, you'll be apt to be stolen from. When you kill, you'll experience painful fruit in the future. When you commit sexual misconduct, people trust you less in the future. So you see that, how it's happened in the past. You can study, listen to podcasts on, serial killers and hear about how they got caught. Or, if you study worldly examples of this, then you see the patterns and can make inferences of the future. So that's predictive intelligence, or knowing the results of action. And the final meaning of Attha, which we'll be going into here, is Attha as the goal or the purpose. So this can be thought of as goal intelligence, or just an appreciation for the end game. So an end game intelligence. And in a Buddhist context, or for anybody who's interested in living in the way that the Buddha taught, it's good to appreciate two levels of goal. The Buddha spoke of two different levels of, or actually spoke of three different levels of goals. So you have goals within the present moment, goals within future lives, and the overarching biggest goal, capital G, Nibbana, the highest goal. So in the present moment, we want to have as our goal present moment attention, which is freed from the biases of greed and anger and restlessness and drowsiness or dullness. So this is basically right mindfulness. You know the mind in and of itself, ardent, alert, and mindful, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. That's my goal in this moment, and the next moment, every moment. So every moment that you're listening, every moment that you're talking, every moment that you're being silent, every moment that you're studying, from now until Nibbana, this is our goal. Present moment appreciation, free and balanced. This is our working goal, what we do, what we work on, our working ground, our kammatthana. That's the literal meaning of the word kammatthana. Our working ground. In the Dzogchen tradition, they talk about taking the goal as the path. So here we can take the present moment freedom, which comes from being balanced, having a balanced mind, as our path. The goal as the path. For people who do believe in future lives, and you're not yet inclining towards Nibbana in this, or Nirvana in this present life, then you might have a next life goal of a heavenly realm or a future birth as a human being. And the Buddha did talk about this as recorded in the Pali Canon. If you don't yet, people can make an argument that teachings on future lives are just some later addition. But if you take the teachings on face value, that as they're recorded over and over again, that there are future lives. And the Buddha did teach that it's wise to be doing things which lead to heaven, or which lead to a rebirth in a realm which is not hellish or animalistic or ghost-like. So inclining upwards in the samsaric trajectory. And the highest goal is nibbana. Yeah, so we know this goal. We have this goal intelligence, this endgame intelligence, which knows these three different goals. And one way to relate to these, there's a beautiful Christian poem from an Irish wandering ascetic or an Irish monk who traveled all the way from Ireland to Rome, went on a pilgrimage to Rome. And I believe this is within the first millennia AD, and came back and had a beautiful poem, which I think it's phrased in Christian terminology, but I think there's a way which we can appreciate it on the Dhammic level as well. So the poem is, to go to Rome, great the journey, little the gain. If you do not take him with you, you will not find him there. And so this him, capital H, is referring to God in a Christian context, but yeah, we can take it for Attha with a capital H. Yeah, to go to Nibbana, great the journey. Well, maybe it doesn't naturally. So to go on a pilgrimage, yeah, little of the journey, great the journey, little the gain. If you do not take the Attha, if you do not take the purpose, the goal with you, if you're not mindful every moment of the path, then you will not find the Attha there. And this final Attha is synonymous with Nibbana. So those are four meanings of Attha. You've got Attha as the meaning, Attha as goodness, Attha as results, Attha as the goal. And we want to be people who know this, who have an intuitive, intelligent grasp of these four different aspects of life. So I think I'll close the formal talk there and open things up for discussion. If anyone has any questions, we can take questions. All right, good morning. Nice, just lots of nice greetings so far from people who coming to know and people who haven't yet met. Okay, so the first question, very easy to answer, is how do you spell Attha? And I'll make that disappear because this Attha, the second intelligence which the Buddha taught in the Atthaññū Sutta, is A-T-T-H-A, Attha. So it's got that aspirate TH. In Pali, a TH never makes a th sound. There's no th in Pali. There's just an aspirated t. So Attha. And it's good to see this this distinction, because the third type of intelligence, which we'll be going over next week, is Atthaññū with A-T-T-A, which literally means self. So Attha, as in anicca, dukkha, anatta. So the teaching of not self is opposed to Attha, or the Sanskrit Atman. This is a Sanskrit word which is reified and deified even in Hinduism and Vedantic thought. So the knowledge of the Atman, the knowledge of self, is what we'll be going over next week. Okay. Another question. So, Clear Mountain and Ajahn, does this quality of Atthaññū relate to the instinctive feeling that there is complicity, kamma vipaka, in passive benefit from the harmful actions of others, meaning the third meaning of results? So does this quality of Attha, the third meaning, which is knowing results, relate to the instinctive feeling that there is complicity in passive benefit from the harmful actions of others? Interesting question. So passive benefit from the harmful actions of others. Yeah, I think it would. This meaning of Attha is more fleshed out in Buddhaghosa's commentaries. So the definition of Attha as result or as phala or as fruit is not so much talked about in the Pali Canon proper, but it's used in the commentaries literally just to mean to understand the results of actions or the fruit of action. I was listening to a Thai Dhamma talk on this subject, and in Thai Dhamma talks, oftentimes there's not much of a distinction made between what's the early canon, the Pali Canon, and what's commentary, the Atthakatha of Buddhaghosa. So in many talks, this is because oftentimes the canon is printed both with the canon proper and the commentary on subsequent pages. So you've got Majjhima Nikaya number 1, commentary number 1. Majjhima number 2, commentary number 2, like this. So oftentimes people, when people are studying in Thailand, they don't make a distinction between these two different levels, which in Western circles we make a big deal out of. But how the commentary talks about it is literally just as the fruit. So this Thai monk was giving a talk and actually giving examples from modern day economic theory and examples from how one could make predictions about how certain industries, particularly he was talking about like the natural gas industry, would have fruits, and would the price of natural gas or oil prices, these stocks would go up or down based on knowledge of causes. So a very kind of worldly example, but that is how the commentary uses the term, is just causes and results of any kind. So when you think of, the question was about, knowing the complicity in passive benefit from harmful actions of others, to the extent that that means just the fruit of actions in the past, it's included. So you think about racism. So in the past, America has a brutal history of slavery and institutional racism, and how we benefit from that. The fruit of that, I mean, you can't really deny it. Knowing that, I think, would be an appreciation of the fruit in this sense. So yeah, good point. So that really does, elicit reflection. It should elicit reflection. Okay. So another question. Bhante Kovilo, can one contemplate the 3 Dhamma seals to develop nibbida? So I think what is being referred to as Dhamma seals are the tilakkhana, the three characteristics, which are anicca, impermanence, dukkha, or suffering or unsatisfactoriness, and anatta, of not self. And to develop nibbida means disenchantment, or literally disgust. That's a bit rough for most people, but disenchantment. Who wants to be fully enchanted outside of their novel reading and Marvel comic movie watching? Being able to not be fooled by the fantasies of the world, and actually, contemplating the three Dharma seals, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and anatta, is exactly how you develop dispassion and disenchantment. When you really see that this cheesecake is just made up of component parts, there's just cheese and there's a bunch of white sugar, which in itself is not so exciting, and lard or fat. I mean, that's not very exciting in and of itself. I mean, who wants to eat lard straight? When you think of the dukkha, the unsatisfactory nature of this, it's somewhat satisfactory while you're eating it, but think about half an hour down the line when you're in your food coma. That's less than happiness. So focus on the three characteristics to give rise to anatta. That's exactly how you do it. Okay, and this might be the last question, which we try to go over, unless anybody else makes it in. So the question is, does this mean there is a potential of learning how we can read and do react from others' actions? Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, that's, in a sense, that's the whole, that's a huge part of Dhamma practice. So the question puts it in terms of, is there a potential of learning how you can understand or read and do and relate to other people's actions? Excuse me, I misread the question. How I can understand and take lessons from other people's actions. Is that part of the path? Is there a potential for that? And the answer is totally yes. I mean, in large measure, that's what we're learning from as we read the Pali Canon, or as we read, really, anytime you read any true account of reality, whether that is, truth statements in the Pali Canon or any other religious tradition, or just history as it's played out, or the news. If you're reading non-fake news, true accounts of how things are, and you can learn lessons. You can take lessons from all these things if you're willing to put forth the overhead, the cognitive overhead, to take those lessons. There's totally that potential. So you shouldn't limit yourself to only a narrow spectra of learning from your own mistakes. Watch the unskillful people around you and learn from the lessons that they're learning painfully. When you see people cheat on their spouse, cheat on their boyfriend, girlfriend, their partners, see all of the dukkha that causes for them and for others, and learn the lesson. I don't want to do that myself. When you see somebody just who has no kind of stopgap between their thoughts and their words, and it's just like a gush from intention to tongue waggling. When you see somebody who has no mouth-based filter in that way, you see, God, that's, I don't want to be like that. It's not the case that anything that I think is worth saying. So God, I don't want to be like him, or I don't want to be like this historical character. Yeah, all of the murderers and thieves of the past who've been caught and punished for their deeds. Yeah, I don't want to be caught and punished like them. And you might say, oh, but what about all the lessons from the past, all of the great pirates, or all of the murderers who didn't get caught, or all the wonderful thieves who never got busted for their duty? Isn't that like counter evidence that, yeah, maybe there's not, maybe, killing and stealing and sexual misconduct, maybe there's no bad result from that. I'd say not so fast. Don't jump to that conclusion. One, you don't have the full picture of their karmic results, even within this life. Yeah, so even if you read a news story or an encyclopedia entry about how somebody seems to have gotten away with murder scot-free, you're not necessarily reading about the psychological effects and the depression or the PTSD or the internal states, even within their very own life, that they experience, much less future benefits if you believe in future lives. The Buddha did say that there would be negative repercussions for negative actions. So but that said, yes, we can learn from others, and you can do that. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the refrain for every exercise is one examines oneself internally, seeing the impermanence, or one looks externally, one observes the Dhamma in and of itself, phenomenon in and of themselves, externally, putting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. So yeah, learn lessons wherever they come up. Great question. And let's do one last question. So yes, you got to the heart of the question. Example, even though the first precept does not specify, if one had investments in military arms, intuitive intelligence classifies this as complicity. Wow. Yeah. Well said. And if there is complicity, I mean, I'm not advocating war tax resisting necessarily, though I have been impressed by people who do have that heightened level of ethical scrupulosity, like Henry David Thoreau, didn't pay his taxes, went to jail, albeit for a very short period, for not paying his taxes, or the portion of his taxes which would go towards war. We're complicit in many things, especially in a modern day culture. What goes into the lighting that's produced here? What goes into who's paying for this internet? Modern living has so many implications. There are so many hidden causes, and it's useful, very useful to examine and increase your intuitive intelligence of the fruits of action. Whose fruit am I benefiting from? The results of whose labors am I benefiting from? And notice, I'm not saying dwell on that, but appreciate it, but be intelligent about your appreciation of it. Intuitively acknowledge it, but don't binge on it. Don't beat yourself up for it. In the end, we're only the heirs to our own intentions. And while our intentions are shaped to greater or lesser degree by all sorts of prior actions, the present moment intentions, wholesome or unwholesome, kusala or akusala, are what really matter. So this lighting, I don't know all of the harms and the costs that have gone into turning on these lights here, but I can be pretty sure of my own intentions in the present moment. May my actions, may my speech, and you can think similarly for your own actions, watching the internet. Who's paying for the internet server? What is the cost of producing the metals that went into creating the hard drives, etc.? Who's hurting from all of these different things? You acknowledge it, but notice, my intention right now is to listen to Dhamma. My intention right now is to grow in Dhamma. And that true intention, albeit perhaps not 1,000, 100% of the picture, is kamma. This is kamma is intention. So that's what we can control, and that's what you give attention and interest and love to. Give your love to the present moment intention. Okay. All right, friends. Kalyanamitta. It's been really enjoyable kind of examining this together. Let's keep paying attention to our present moment intentions. Try to grow in our intuitive appreciation of the Attha. Grow in our appreciation of the meaning of the teachings, the goodness of our lives that we're aiming towards, the results of actions, and know your greater purpose. And be sober, but also be happy. Happiness can be the path. So don't depress yourself. So leave it at that, and wish everybody a great weekend.